In this lesson, we are talking about exchange surfaces in the urinary system, and there are two main things here: identifying the parts of the nephron and their function, and then explaining how this glomerular filtration actually works. There's a lot going on in this unit. It's quite complex. Now, we've already discussed digestion, where the food is taken in, your body breaks it down, absorbs the nutrients, and we need that to create energy basically. But during the course of digestion, our body can absorb lots of toxic substances through the food we eat, so the body's got to actually remove them. Now, we've talked about digestion here. Digestion's breaking down the food into its essential components, and this way the building blocks of molecules can be recycled over and over again. So metabolism is the chemical reactions which your body undergoes, like all of them, and the reactions as part of digestion are a huge part of this. Now, obviously, these chemical reactions, they're going to get useful products are created alongside all the waste products. If the waste products start to accumulate in the body without being removed, they can be really detrimental to the normal functioning of cells. So the body must find ways to remove them, and they do this via filtration and excretion. Now, examples of these kinds of waste products include carbon dioxide from cellular respiration and nitrogenous waste from breakdown of proteins. We know that cellular respiration breaks down carbs and lipids and ultimately creates energy in the form of ATP, which is what we want, but a waste product of this is carbon dioxide. We don't use this well, so we need to remove it in the bloodstream. So it's going to travel in the bloodstream via the red blood cells, and it's going to be removed in gas exchange and ventilation, right? So the water in this reaction, it's not a waste product. We can use that. So again, we need this, we need this, we need to remove this. When proteins are broken down, however, they create this nitrogenous waste, and it's nitrogen containing, okay? So recall that proteins are made up of a string of amino acids. Nitrogen is a structural component of. So when the proteins are broken down, the nitrogenous parts are split off and leaves the remainder of the molecule to be converted into carbohydrates or lipids for energy. And this means the nitrogen's got to be removed some way or another. So initially, the nitrogen waste product is turned into ammonia, which is soluble in water. For aquatic animals, this is really, really helpful. They can just remove it via their gills into the surrounding water. But for us, it's incredibly toxic to cells, so we can't store it for very long. We have to use energy to convert it into urea, and then it's much less toxic, still toxic, and therefore we can store it for a little bit longer. And mammals excrete this waste as urea in urine, whereas reptiles and birds excrete it as uric acid, which is like the white component of bird poo. It's containing uric acid crystals. Now, we aren't just talking about the internal cellular environment here. We also need to consider the external cellular environment. Outside of the cell, the extracellular fluid, it's also known as interstitial fluid. And this is basically a solution of water and salts, and its composition needs to be really highly regulated. If its pH or water or salt balance changes, it may not be suitable for enzymes or other molecules to function. So when salts and water are removed from the body during excretion, it needs to be handled really delicately. And so it can maintain the appropriate parameters for all the things which function in between the cells. Part of the liver's role is to detoxify the body. So any chemicals like drugs or alcohols that are ingested are absorbed during that digestion, and it'll circulate around the bloodstream. So as proteins are digested and broken down, the nitrogenous waste, like the urea, will be circulating. In order to remove these wastes, mammals have two kidneys that filter the blood. So yes, the liver does one job, but the kidneys are also helping. So the kidney's specific role is to filter out the waste products, reabsorb, and keep any other substances. We don't want to get rid of everything. So before secreting unwanted urea and other wastes as urine, we've got to make sure we've grabbed everything we need first. The body's got to lose a little water in this process to make sure that the soluble wastes are actually dissolved in that water, but much of the water that the body filters out is actually reabsorbed in the kidney, meaning it's saved and put back into the bloodstream. So we want to get rid of the urea, but we want to keep the water. Now, desert animals are really highly adapted to make urine, which is extremely concentrated. So it's got heaps and heaps of salt, but far less water. So they are not dehydrating themselves. And the less urine they can excrete, the better, essentially. So their bodies are adapted to minimize water loss. And you might have seen this chart. You really do want to avoid being here where it's very highly concentrated salts, and you want to be up further here where you've actually had a lot of water to drink and your body's comfortable with removing it with the salts as well. Now, blood is entering the kidneys via the renal artery here. right? And it leaves via the renal vein, which makes sense. Within the organ, there are substantially smaller capillaries that are flowing, and what they do is they wrap around these tiny filtration units known as nephrons. It's at these nephrons where blood in the capillaries is put under really high pressure to push the fluid component into the nephron. Now, these are really complex looking structures, but the nephron will reabsorb or save any worthwhile substance like water and deposit it back in the bloodstream via all those capillaries that are wrapped around it. And the filtrate, right, is the end product. It's produced, contains minimal water and the waste salts and all the other chemicals that need to be removed. So this is excretion and reabsorption, and they're happening simultaneously. The nephron is incredibly complex. It is a complex piece of anatomy that is depicted in lots of different ways. We're talking, hey, I can see every single capillary that's happening around here, to I just need to see the essential parts, and we need to identify the essential parts. So that is literally what we need to do. Identify the parts of the nephron and their functions in the production of urine. And if this is a nice, easy to read diagram of a nephron, you will see why this is a challenging thing to identify. We have all these parts, but I do want you to watch the next video so that you can really go through what's happening at each of these points. Or you can have a look at a diagram like this and even see, look, there's a lot of ions coming in and out, there's a lot of sugars coming in and out. We need to understand what's happening at each of these points, because you can see they're at different parts of the kidney, either the cortex or the outer medulla, and that means the extracellular space is very, very different in terms of concentration of salt and water. So please make sure you have a look at the next video. This is what we're aiming to do, so please draw a lot of diagrams.